Coming up on the LCS Preview Show, we crush the Super Week highlights, count down the top 5 plays, and reveal the players that will go beast for your fantasy team. Don't touch that browser. The LCS Preview Show starts right now.
That's a kill for Shifter in his first game on Dignitas. And they're going to start. That's just happened. How have they let it go through? Can you believe it? Complexity gonna take down Cloud9 on day 3. Unbelievable rib. That's a pinpoint again. Yes. Technically a delayed pentakill, but sadly it doesn't count for a +10. LNQ will go 4-0 on Super Week.
They can play fast or they can play slow. Either way, it's gonna end in victory for these guys.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to your one-stop for everything LCS heading into Week 2 of the Summer Split. I'm Remy Kavizin III, and I'll be your master of ceremony for today's LCS Remix.
And I'm Joshua Jatt Leisman, and I'll be breaking down the fantasy picks that will have your team walking away from Week 2 with a win.
But before we jump into Week 2 of the Summer Split, let's hit rewind and check out the biggest games from Super Week 1, including an incredible start to the split by a team that nobody thought would even be in the league. But first, we kick off the highlights with a rematch of the Spring Playoff Finals, the champs Fnatic versus the runner-up SK Gaming.
And it looked like Fnatic came out swinging after that disappointing showing at All-Stars, picking up the first couple kills of the game on SK and looking strong.
Yeah, they give Jesus a pretty hard time here in the early game. Second time going down there. And SK was kind of on the hunt for a kill here.
Yeah, I mean, they're already down 5-0, but it's the SK team play catching Fnatic out of position that eventually gave them enough edges to just take the game.
After that, it was really all up to them. SK stopping things like this. So as hatching a ward pretty much. Didn't even know he was sitting on it. But SK took advantage of situations like that to take the victory.
Yeah, SK really surprised people coming out on Fnatic because it looked like they were losing almost the whole game.
And now we see SK versus Gambit at 0-1. All eyes were on Gambit's new mid laner. He had huge shoes to fill here.
Yeah, and Nick didn't necessarily have the best week, but this game in particular, Gambit looked very strong. 15,000 gold up at 32 minutes, but would this be another SK macro game comeback?
Well, they win a major team fight going 3-0 here, but was it going to be enough? Gambit really wanted to win on Super Week, and they were able to squeak it out on that situation.
Yeah, this final push being able to pick up just enough people on the SK team, and the minions were just also too much for SK to take on. Great intervention there by Nick.
Very great play. Gambit finding a win they really needed for momentum coming into the Summer Split. Copenhagen Wolves now a highlight versus Millennium, who was 2-0. The LCS debut for Airwax and Woola.
Yeah, and this game was a bloodbath. So many team fights, 15 minutes here, right at the Dragon. Everybody just died.
A lot of good things coming in here for Millennium. Like we said, one of the best weeks, and it's just like you couldn't get away from them.
Yeah, this is probably the turn fight. Airwalks right there, gets a great initiation with Eve. And you can see the Copenhagen Wolves with their pickups, Woolite and Airwalks. They do have potential being able to take down Millennium, who many thought would be an easy game, but actually, since they had such a good week, this was a huge win for Copenhagen Wolves.
Huge win, a very strong performance there by the new CW. Next highlight is Alliance versus Fnatic. Alliance would pick up the win during this game, but it was Fnatic looking to grab it.
Yeah, Pekka gets all shook up there because he had been ganked previously to burn Flash, and then he stuck around, not accounting for Eve's Flash.
Beautiful hook from Nif's Thresh there allows Alliance to snowball their lead. Here they pick up 3 for 1, Jad. It was almost insurmountable.
We've seen this story so many times. Fnatic getting caught in team fights by better team fighting teams. That's what Alliance did right there.
The next highlight, a 2-1 Millennium versus a 1-2 Gambit. Millennium looking to finish this week 3-1 versus that struggling Gambit.
Yeah, and this was not Nick's day. Kerp and CottonX camped him over and over again on Syndra, and Kerp could not be contained in this game.
A lot of people have been singing that CottonX praise too, Jab. 32 minutes in here, Kerp instantly deleting Diamond again. When you have plays like that and a 10-0 LeBlanc, how can you not win the game?
Yeah, Kerp was on fire this week. Top fantasy player.
Yeah, Super Hot Crew versus SK. Our next highlight to take a look at. This is We Will Failur's debut.
Yeah, and he gets some revenge there on N-Rated. N-Rated looking a little weak in that game, but SK, they do hold the team strategy. So many close games, they always seem to come out on top.
47 minutes as this one went for the long haul. An extremely risky Baron. Super Hot Crew failed to stop the Baron attempt, and that's all SK needed to win that with the victory. And with that, SK is now tied with Alliance and Millennium after week 1 for the #1 spot in the EU LCS.
Yeah.
A lot of different standings.
A lot of
Strange
close
standings,
games for SK. They could have probably been 4-0 or 1-3 if a few things went differently.
Yep, and after 16 games of the European Awesome, the LCS table sets up like this. Alliance, Millennium, and SK Gaming are all sitting at the head of the table, locked up at 3-1. Even though they are all tied, Alliance is listed first because they start with an A. Just another example of Froggen's next-level strategy when putting his super team together. Rounding out this palindromic table are Fnatic and the Crew at 2-2 with the Wolves, Gambit, and Roccat on the bottom looking up. Now to help us sort through what this all means is the fastest flash in the West, Trevor Quickshot Henry.
Well, you better believe it, but that's the fastest flash on EU West. Let's get the show on the road, Riv.
All right, Quickshot. Last week you said Alliance was the hungriest team in Europe and that they would win the summer split. Would you like to change your prediction?
Oh, definitely not. I'm super happy to stick with my prediction of Alliance taking the top spot. And looking back at the week 1 set of games, there's already a massive improvement over the spring split performance for Alliance. They seem to be gelling as a single unit. Their team play is solid. Plus, Tabs and Nif, they really came out swinging. They destroyed absolutely everyone. One thing I also want to highlight is how refreshing it was to see Froggen focusing on that supportive mid laner like Lulu and forcing the rest of his team to step up and work as a unit if they want to win games. Now, we can't ignore the fact that they did drop a game to the super hot Crew. You simply can't ignore that, but they did take down Fnatic, Gambit, and the Copenhagen Wolves on their way to a 3-1 week. In general, I just feel like Alliance were working together well. They seem to make smarter decisions regarding positional play as well as objective-based play. And we'll have to see if they can avoid the pitfalls they made in the spring splits. Can they keep up that level of performance for multiple weeks back-to-back?
Well, we'll have to see. Another team that lived up to the pre-split expectations in week 1 was SK Gaming. Not only did they get revenge for their spring playoff loss to Fnatic, but they had some big individual performances as well.
You know, after how well SK finished the spring split, I think it was good to see that they hadn't lost their team play or the way that they won games. But they did drop a game, a very close game to Gambit, and that single loss is all that marks their record. They took down Fnatic, the super hot Crew, and they absolutely destroyed the Copenhagen Wolves. But it's a mixed bag because it was frustrating to see SK make the same mistakes and the same errors that have plagued them in the spring split. They struggled during the early stage of the games, in specifically the laning phase. They often fall behind and they have to play from behind in the mid game. It's something that I think SK really needs to work on if they want to aim for another top of the table finish and a trip to the World Championships. In terms of individual play, Jez's really shone last week. He compiled the second highest total kills in Europe at 26. His Kayle play with that Runan's Hurricane was very strong, and he went on the record to say how much he enjoys the build. You know, he used to actually be an AD carry, for those of you that may not know. But it wasn't only Jez's. Candypan and Rated, they had very strong showings. Steady Freddy, he just delivered like he always does. And as a team, they're just looking great.
Well, no one is surprised to see Alliance or SK Gaming at the top of the table. Millennium is a bit of a shock, however. Led by Week 1 MVP Kurt, Millennium racked up as many wins during the Super Week as they did through the first 4 weeks of the spring split. What do you have to say was the secret to their Week 1 success?
Well, it's a massive surprise, first of all, and I don't think there is a secret. I think just as a fact, the whole team performed phenomenally. They all stepped up. Kerp, he just played like a man possessed. He turned games in his team's favor over and over. Creatine and J-Ree, they stepped up their level of performance. And Creatine, for me, was the most impressive AD carry of the week. You can't not talk about Cotton X either. I think he finally settled into his position. He played a multitude of champions, all to a fantastic ability. And when all of their individual play was great, the team really pressured objectives well, especially after finding kills. If you compare Millennium from last split to this split, the change is outstanding. They've really shown a lot of growth, at least during Week 1. We need to see if they can perform at that level over a longer period of time. And then just as one aside, I really want to praise Millennium's conceptual play regarding their level 1 invades and their trinket usage. They used that blue trinket start on Kevin quite a few times, and they showed a willingness to arrest dominance in the super early stages. So Millennium make early game plays. It's a trait that they carried over from the spring split, but this time they're making it count, and it feels more positive.
All right, Quickshot, thanks for the knowledge buff, but now I've got to make a European lane swap and say goodbye to you. Goodbye, Quickshot. And say hello to Shocks. Hello, Shocks.
Hello, Riv. I missed you last week.
Missed you as well. All right, Shocks, you recently had a chance to speak with the teams that struggled during the week 1 of the summer split and get their take on their own performance. Let's start with Gambit. They played their first LCS game without Alex on the roster. How did the team feel taking to the Rift without their former mid laner?
Well, when I spoke to Edward earlier this week, he said that it was a little weird practicing without Alex, but when it came to game day, it wasn't weird at all. Edward expressed a lot of confidence in Nick, saying that Nick always tries hard, no matter who his opponent is, and that Nick will speak up and voice his opinion with his new teammates. Now, when I asked Edward whether Nick will become a permanent member of Gambit, he told me, quote, "We didn't try out any other mid laners. I'd like to keep him on our team, and I hope it's going to happen. I can't say 100% though, because I'm not alone in the team."
Well, Shocks, if Edward gets his way and Nick is the permanent mid laner, it does mean we'll have to sadly say goodbye to another new member of Gambit.
When Alexis say he's leave, we need to find a new mid laner. So I have decision to don't save until we find the mid laner. I think it's to show that we are prepared for a new season of LCS. So I read the comments. If people love my style, maybe I'm leave it.
Well, I absolutely love the style. It's almost as impressive as your beard, Riv.
I think he's really onto something with that, and we'll have to see if Gambit does any better. Now let's shift our attention off of Darian's face and to the Wolves, who added 2 new members to the pack over the midseason hiatus. How do the Wolves feel heading into week 2 of the summer split?
When I spoke to Youngbuck about Super Week, he said we were satisfied with going 1-3 against the top 4 teams. But he continued to say that they were unhappy about their last 2 losses, where they were, quote, run over with ease. Youngbuck said that his team knew that they wouldn't have the best performance in the early weeks of the summer, and that they just wanted to have their new players experience what it was like to play in the LCS. He believes that they have the potential to grow a lot and that they already showed great teamwork in their games. Now, Youngbuck is very optimistic about the summer, saying, quote, we have played the top 4 teams, and in the next 2 weeks we play the bottom 4, and after the next 2 weeks it'll be easier to tell where we stand as a team.
And the third team who finished Super Week with only 1 win was Roccat. They're the only team at the bottom of the table who didn't make an off-season roster swap despite a shaky end of the spring split. How's the squad feeling heading into their matchup against first place SK Gaming today?
When I spoke to Vander, he was understandably upset about their 1-3 Super Week record. He said that the only game he thought they deserved to lose was versus Millennium. He felt that they were unlucky versus the Super Hot Crew, and they threw the game versus Fnatic. Now, when I asked him why he feels they have been struggling lately and whether he feels that the teams have figured them out, Vander replied that the style of play is always shifting and they are playing different than they were before, but so is every team. Vander said that he thinks that every team struggled during Super Week, that it's just the beginning of the season. They lost some close games, and that, quote, we know we have to work hard, but there's no reason to worry yet.
All right, Shocks, thanks for the insider information. Have a great week 2, and we'll see you back here before week 3.
See you next week.
All 3 of the 1-3 teams will have a chance to even up their record this week, as every European LCS team heads to the Rift twice over the next 2 days. Coming up immediately following the LCS Preview Show, it's a battle between the 2 most successful European franchises in league history, Fnatic versus Gambit. That'll be followed by the Wolves versus the Crew. Then it's a battle between first place Millennium and first place Alliance. And wrapping up your Thursday of LCS, it's Roccat versus SK Gaming. Then coming up on Friday, it's another battle between first place teams as Alliance takes on SK Gaming, with Gambit and the Crew finishing up week 2 in the EU. Now, if you're thinking about your fantasy team while I was running down the schedule and wondering, should I swap out FLICKR for Selfie this week? Wonder no more, because Jat is literally standing by with the fantasy knowledge that will help you dominate your league in week 2.
And LCS Fantasy has been a ton of fun so far, and we're only a week in. So let's take a look at actually some of the biggest beasts from the Super Week we just saw. All of LMQ did well, but particularly Xiao Zhao. He had 109.5 points, even though he was projected for 72. We also need to be able to talk about the leader in points for the week, Kerp, on Millennium, who most people actually probably had on their bench. So don't feel bad if you didn't start him. And finally, we've got Shifter. He got a pentakill in his first game, 50 points in his first game, and 100 for the week. And those guys stepped up big, but now we got to talk about guys in the next week, or in this week, who kind of fell below and were a bit of duds. Diamond, in particular, was probably the first or second jungler most people took, And he had 30 points, which is really unfortunate. Soaz as well, one of the best top laners in the league projected-wise, 36. And Meteos, even though 57.5 points isn't terrible in just looking at the point total, but considering he was the first overall pick in a lot of leagues, it's a big disappointment for these guys. Another thing I want to focus on, though, is the sleeper picks. And I want to focus on these guys because they were probably available in most leagues, and you might be able to scoop them up quickly before the rosters get locked in when the games start. Selfie in particular. He has a much easier schedule this week, which could lead to some big points. He plays against Nick and Coutard. Mimer as well, a tremendously strong player who had a weak week 1, but could have a very strong week 2 against Darren and Youngbuck. And then we have to talk about the solo laners at Evil Geniuses. They went 0-4 last week against some very tough competition, but almost everyone who played against Complexity last week had good games. And half of their games, since there's only 2 this week, are against Complexity. And when EG does well, their solo laners thrive. So definitely throw those guys in if you have a weak starter in that position. Don't go benching Bjergsen for Pobelter, but if you have someone else in there, it might be worth it. And then there's also guys to watch out for, the guys that have more difficult schedules this week and had amazing weeks last week. Kerp, there's a lot of hype around him, but he was on people's bench at the start of the year for a reason, because he wasn't expected to perform. Be wary of starting him over some of the top-tier picks. Shifter as well is against Xiao Xiao and Bjergsen. Those are really difficult matchups for him. And then LMQ as a team. I know it's easy to jump on the LMQ fantasy hype train because they had such an amazing week 1, but their schedule gets much tougher this week. Dignitas and Cloud9 are not teams that typically give up good fantasy numbers to opponents, so keep all that in mind when you're locking in your roster in the next 20 minutes. And also remember, if you don't have a roster and you missed out on week 1, don't worry. You still have time to sign up for a fantasy league. Just head over to fantasy.lolesports.com, follow the instructions, and set up your league. But for now, let's send it over to Riv for an LCS mic check.
Thanks, Chat. Some of the coolest moments in an LCS broadcast are the replays of what the players are saying during the game or singing before the match. And while some of it is tactical brilliance, eloquent strategy, or a mind-blowing string of obscenities that would make Miley Cyrus proud, the rest of it sounds a little something like this. It's time for All Chat.
You know, that's the theme of the last Pink Floyd album, the Division Bell, that communication solves everything. I'm coming over. Okay, I'm on Lulu. I'm ulting, I'm gonna ult them. Shyvana. No flash. Go. Yasuo! Okay, back forward. Yasuo! Full light. Nice! Keep going, I'm TP. Yeah, we get them all. I got a server. Great job. Listen. Get it. Good job.
You say it? Clear call. Clear calls. Clear good plans. Good plans. Yeah. Okay. All right, we won. All right, we're good. We won, man. We won. Back up. There's line turn. Oh my god, we're so good at this game. Come here.
I'm coming for smite. Kevin, 6-0. Stop. Fuck.
Nice!
Would you believe that? I said I was coming for smite, dude. Fuck.
I don't give a fuck.
Holy shit. Oh my. So bad. You saw the ult like 15 years before.
Don't kill him, man. My points. Don't. My points.
Fantasy points, dude.
Don't. I can't catch him. Don't.
Fantasy points. Yes.
No.
There we go.
Give the penta.
Give me
now your fantasy stats.
Wait, get it. Yes!
That dude was a beast on Thresh yesterday. All my troubles seem so far away, but now I need something that seems to stay.
It's always fantastic to know that players share the same moments of, mess ups and yelling and also forgetting the lines of a song. But beyond that, we love it when you guys watch us live. It makes getting up 12 hours before Cutie Pie rolls out of bed and starts braiding his luscious locks all worth it. But in case you or your friends do miss our live performance, you can now check us out on lolesports.com. We've got our own tab at the top between leagues and tickets, which means you're now just one click away from all the highlights, fantasy tips, and comedy that's too risque for the LCS broadcast. You never know what surprises we have in store. Just ask Shifter or Afrolift. Now let's turn our attention back to the Rift and relive the biggest moments from week 1 of the North American LCS Summer Split. We're going to be kicking it off with a rematch of the Spring Tournament Finals, Cloud9 versus Team Solo Mid highlight here. Cloud9 having the shot caller back, and Amazing and Glebe looking to make an impact.
And honestly, Riv, this was a pretty slow game, and Cloud9 controlled it throughout, most notably at this Dragon fight. And afterwards, TSM could not really recover in any way, shape, or form.
Now, Cloud9 was able to really just handle these fights as usual, and the start of the split looked to be normal.
Yeah, everyone was thinking Cloud9 is doing great, and the roster changes from TSM, still the jury was out because you don't expect them to beat Cloud9.
Nope. LMQ versus Evil Geniuses. Everybody trying to figure out how LMQ would do in the LCS.
And early on, EG had a pretty good plan. Wait for LMQ to get aggressive and then punish. They catch No Name trying to invade Snoopy.
And aggressive, I think, is the key word for LMQ, because even if things like that don't work, you see 2 members going down, they keep putting the pedal to the metal.
And that's exactly what LMQ decided to do. They found fight after fight. Specifically, there's a big one in the mid lane where they turn the tides.
An amazing 3-person Solar Flare coming from Moore. Usually he's the bait for the team, but he'll get the initiation sometimes as well.
Yeah. Oh no, I hooked a minion. What do I do? And then he just jumps to a minion and dies. But at the end of the day, LMQ's bottom lane still crushes, and Vasily still gets a bunch of kills, as he does in this fight.
Despite a poor start there for LMQ, they do go on to pick up their first win in the LCS, and they clean up everything in these fights before they move on. Taking their victory walk on, our next highlight is going to be coming from Complexity versus Dignitas. This is Complexity's debut in the LCS and Dig's first game with Shifter, Zion.
Yeah, and right off the bat, even though Shifter was getting beaten in CS, he definitely comes out on top in kills, killing Prawley over and over with the help of that guy, Crumbs.
Picking up a triple kill after this one, Dignitas's coverage, map control, were second to none on this one. It allows Shifter to do things like this, just roam around for fun.
He was doing pretty well in this game, 10 kills after this Baron fight. I wonder if he's going to get any more.
Possibly being gifted the pentakill in the end of the game. You can hear the team, we just heard in the audio all chat, give it to him, get it, and he does get it. The first one on the first day.
Such a great start for Dignitas, and honestly, Broken Shard was just trying to defend the Nexus, right? That's what I would have said.
CLG versus LMQ up next, a highly anticipated match with their new top laner Seraph against the hyped LMQ.
This game was absolutely crazy. It all started in craziness with this really well executed turret dive. Seraph was looking very good in his first game for CLG here.
Very bold things coming from CLG, but they will never give an inch early. Xiao Zhao picking up a triple kill here as CLG tries to push the lead a little too much.
Yeah, I mean, a 2v5 at the Baron pit, no one really expected them to do that, but CLG tried a very early Baron, and the solo laners of LMQ are very good. They shut him down.
Something like that's hard to come back from. That's a second victory for LMQ, 2-0 on the day after that. Next up is Dignitas versus Cloud9. Crumbs and Zion with the thumbs up as they go into this game hard.
Yeah, and Cloud9 described it as a blind spot later. That spot where High just got caught by Crumbs happened again and again, and it really allowed Dignitas to take big-time control over this game.
And just look at that, 27.5 minutes in Cloud9's base, almost unheard of, but Dignitas makes it happen, and they take down the Nexus along with it.
Yeah, those roster moves are looking fantastic for Dignitas. Crumbs is very happy to have new solo laners on both sides of him.
LMQ versus Curse now coming in. LMQ 3-0 versus the 0-2 Curse, and Xiao Zhao and No Name do not let up.
Really good jungle mid synergy at the start of this game. It was a little slower than the other LMQ games, but in this one, they really had their patience tested.
Very good point on the slow work. LMQ did what they could. Xpecial trying consistently with the flash engages, but LMQ seemingly always has Ackerman there as a tank to help tear through the fights.
Yeah, there was a lot of baiting of Xiao Xiao's LeBlanc in this one that really prolonged the game, but LMQ found the fights they needed down the stretch.
Another more bait here, baiting out the Tibbers for 0 damage. Vasily to pick up the kill, and LMQ really just winning a chaotic fight versus Curse to take the win.
Yeah, they'd grown a pretty big lead throughout that game, and another tough loss for Curse. They always stuck around in these games before falling.
Next up, Cloud9 versus Complexity. On the matchup, it was a battle of the Stash versus the Beard when these two teams went head-to-head.
Yeah, but really, it was the counter gank in the bottom lane that got this one started. Cloud9 was down summoners at the start of this one, and it gave a big edge to Complexity's squad.
Now, people said Robert X. Lee has and always will be a nice and good AD carry, and he shows it by carrying this snowball throughout the game here.
Yeah, a BF sword at 4 minutes after picking up a triple kill and double buffs. If you don't do well with that lead, you're not an LCS AD carry.
35 minutes in, Cloud9 feeling the pressure on the day in Complexity. able to pick up a win nobody thought they would be able to come close to.
I mean, this was the craziest game, Riv. It seemed like Cloud9 was pushed into their base, and Complexity would win the team fight after team fight to come up with a shocking victory.
2 Nexus turrets down on the side of Complexity, but they persevere and finally take down Cloud9's Nexus.
They don't even know how to react after this one. Look at Prawley in the back. He's just lost in his own joy right there.
Complexity's first win in the LCS is an upset against NA's most consistently dominant team, Cloud9, which leaves the entire split open for anything to happen.
It is wide open this year. LMQ at 4-0, maybe they're going to take it home, but there's a lot to see because they got a tough schedule coming up.
That's right. After week 1 of the North American LCS action, the standings might look a little strange. But remember what Loud Sauce said. Life is a series of natural and spontaneous changes. Don't resist them. That only creates sorrow. Let reality be reality. Let things flow naturally forward in whatever way they like. Or, what Taylor Swift said, this is a new beginning and things will change. It's like 2 peas in a pod.
Whichever one you want to listen to.
Right. LMQ is sitting at 4-0 after completing the 8th perfect Super Week in the North American LCS history.
Yeah, Dignitas and Team Solomid are 1 game off the pace, while the defending champs are tied for 4th with Counter Logic Gaming. Bringing up the bottom of the half of the standings as well, it's Curse and Complexity, and then Evil Genius has compiled the 5th anti-perfect Super Week since the launch of the NALCS.
And that's got to smart for EG. And now for the Fantasy Geniuses, who started as many players from LMQ as they could on their team, they're feeling pretty smart themselves. That's because the team that destroyed the Challenger Series proved that they could do it on the pro level too. After weeks of discussion on where that the team was made in China would end up in the North American LCS, they ended week 1 on top. They led the league in kills, assists, KDA, gold per minute, and the number of fantasy teams they carried to victory. While the entire team was OP, the 2 players who stood out the most were their AD carry Vasily and the week 1 MVP mid laner, Xiao.
Yeah, and I'm just going to start with Vasily. He got the most love from the LCS pros before the summer split started, and I think it's fair to say that he exceeded expectations. He led North America in kills with 28, which was almost double Sneaky and Double as 15, who were the next closest AD carries. He also went 9-0-6 in his first game with 329 CS, 15.8k gold, in a 34-minute win over EG. And statistically, that's the best rookie game by any player in LCS history. But for how well Vasily did, it was actually his teammate Xiao Zhao who was the MVP of the week. That guy just makes play after play. Xiao Zhao was 1st in gold per minute, 2nd in CS, 4th in kills, and 5th in KDA for week 1, despite never playing in the LCS before. And with all these accolades, it was a very impressive week 1 for Xiao Zhao and LMQ. Week 2 will be the true litmus test of just how good this team is. We hit on it when we were talking about fantasy, but LMQ's schedule gets a little more difficult this week. They play Dignitas and Cloud9. And while LMQ did go 4-0, they struggled a bit at times. They had very close games against CLG, but their aggression and precise team fights were enough to make up for some of their miscues. These guys really know how to fight as a team as well. Moore leads the league in assists, while No Name is 3rd, Ackerman is 5th, and Xiao Zhao is 7th. But this week will be their toughest fight yet. And afterwards, we'll know if LMQ is kind of the next Cloud9, or if they're more like Roccat, a hot start before they fall back to earth.
But speaking of hot starts, no one in LCS history has gotten off to a hotter start with a new team than Dignitas' Shifter. His Dignitas debut was the stuff of legends, as Shifter the God went 15-0-4, including his first professional penta, only the 8th penta achieved in the 814 LCS games that have been played so far. Overall, during week 1 of the NALCS, Shifter was 2nd in kills, 3rd in kill participation, 5th in gold per minute, and 1st in KDA with a divine ratio of 21.5. We talked about what a good supporting cast could do for Shifter, but what Shifter did for Dignitas during week 1 was even more impressive.
And honestly, Dignitas hasn't looked this good since their 10-game winning streak during the first couple weeks of last year's spring split. But since that 10-game winning streak, Dignitas has went 37-46, including playoff games. Now, it wasn't just Shifter who stepped up for his new team. Zion jacked up EG in their 2nd win of the week, but even Shifter actually couldn't carry Dignitas past a struggling Curse team in their final game of Super Week, which does raise some red flags, especially since this week Dignitas plays LMQ and Team Solomid, a team they failed to beat even once during the spring split. And while Kiwi and Cutie Pie were able to make some sweet music together, it didn't really translate into many kills. Cutie only has 9 kills, which is tied for the least in the league for AD carry. Crumbs, despite his presence in the jungle, only picked up 4 kills, which is the 2nd fewest for junglers in the league. He did have a lot of assists, though. Part of that is the Shifter's been so good. He took a lot of those kills. But when he was held in check versus Voyboy, the rest of Dignitas wasn't able to step up. And this week's Shifter's only going head-to-head against Xiao and Bjergsen. pretty tough matchups. And if history repeats itself, QtPie might not be much help. He has a 1.31 KDA against TSM last spring, so a lot of Dignitas has to do well. A proving week for them.
And speaking of struggles, for the first time since they won their way into the LCS last summer, Cloud9 looked, well, average, if not bad at times. After taking out their TSM rivals in Game 1 of the summer split, Cloud9 was handed a pair of shocking defeats. First at the hands of Dignitas, and then by the struggling LCS rookies Complexity. But it wasn't just the losses, it was how they lost. Cloud9 looked lost on the Rift, and there were several plays that had everyone scratching their heads and wondering what happened to the most dominant team in LCS history.
Yeah, Riv, in my post-game interview with Meteos after their win over COG, he brought up a lack of practice with High. And while that certainly could be part of the problem, there were some individual mistakes that looked like Cloud9 just didn't have their heads in the game, specifically in their game versus Complexity. Balls tried that weird teleport out of the top lane after a failed turret dive, or in the same game where High kind of zombie walked into Complexity's base and got killed. And it wasn't just the teamwork that looked sloppy, it was the individual play as well. So all these kind of bad things for Cloud9. But we have to remember, they lost to Dignitas in week 1 of the spring split as well. And then they also lost to TSM in week 3. And a lot of people thought that their time had finally come at the top of North America. But all they did was end the split on a 13-game winning streak and then sweep their way through the playoffs. So we know that Cloud9 is capable of bouncing back from this, and a win against LMQ this week would go a long way in proving that they're still the best team in the NALCS.
And despite their week 1 struggles, Meteos and Cloud9 did help the LCS achieve a milestone. During their game against Counter Logic Gaming, Meteos and Meteos took down Doublelift, and while that was only the 9,990th kill in the North American League history, Doublelift's death was the 10,000th death of all time. Congratulations, Doublelift. Your death mechanics are still pristine. During the rest of that game between Counter Logic Gaming and Cloud9, the teams managed 2 more kills, bringing the all-time kill count up to 9,992 kills, which means we'll probably reach kill 10,000 during the game on Saturday. That matchup just happens to feature Doublelift once again as longtime rivals Counter Logic Gaming and Team Solo Mid take to the Rift at noon on Saturday. If Doublelift can get the 10,000th kill to go along with the 10,000th death, people might finally start to believe him that he's good at this game.
I mean, those are 2 pretty pristine marks to hold. Then, of course, on Sunday, the standings keep going. It's the heavyweight fight featuring Cloud9 and LMQ with the battle between Dignitas and Team Solo Mid closing out the week 2 of the LCS. This should be an incredible week.
And speaking of incredible, no LCS Preview Show would be complete without a countdown of the top 5 incredible plays, or as Shifter now gets to call them, the Penta. Let's roll it. At number 5, a mistimed Q takes Yankos for an unfortunate lantern ride.
He's going to go towards Santos. There's a lot of damage coming out. There's the lantern. Oh, Yankos followed him through. The hook comes in as well. And Yankos goes down to the Colin. Wow. Mistimed follow through there on the Q. Creaton picking it exactly the right time.
Coming in at number 4, Dexter shows off what a well-timed Q can do.
Very low, the Q lands from Lee Sin. They don't chase down. He does go in. Big damage. Picks him back in the shutdown. He lands the Q, so Dexter's like, oh my god, I landed the Q. He needs to go over, safeguard to the ward, then just in time to take his second activation. What a ridiculous play from Dexter there.
At number 3, Kerp throws everything but the kitchen sink at Overpower.
Definite improvement, but of course, over a lot more games. Wow. Overpower here, gonna go down. Kerp throwing everything at him. Ignite it will be that finishes things off.
At number 2, Shifter's Dignitas debut ends with the Penta.
Texas turret will go down to Zion Spartan 5 vs 5. The last fight for Complexity. Can they make it happen? Westrice in the front, but he's going to explode. Double kill there for Shifter. Explosion, triple kill. Brogushard stuck inside the base. Everyone going down except the Lee Sin. Quadra kill for Shifter. Will they give it to him? Penta-kill for Shifter in his first game on Dignitas. They're going to start their series out 1-0.
And your number 1 play this week comes courtesy of Doublelift and his Vayne mechanics.
And you can tell Doublelift wants to make something happen. This is what people know and love about CLG, though. There we go. Doublelift's trying for it. He does land the stun, puts the ward down, and gets the kill. Classic CLG matching up against classic Cloud9. Doublelift goes for the solo kill and gets it.
Great games, great kills, another week to get some more. And with that, we've reached the end of our time together, but don't despair. Week 2 of the European LCS will be kicking off in just about a minute. But first, sit back, relax, and enjoy the last hit.